So how do you move on to a story after you had the story of Jonathan Hagg? And it's hard to do because that is a phenomenal story. And I love it. I love it. But there's only one way to do it. And I know how to do it. And that, my friends, is to talk about diarrhea. No disrespect. No disrespect at all. I'm actually super excited for this segment because it's a new segment, and the reason I like the segment is because it is the epitome of what I want when I make all these videos. It is interaction, and I'm making this video because of interaction, right? On my Instagram story, because I didn't know I did not have enough stories for this week. I just put out, I straight up just asked y'all. Which, by the way, follow me on Instagram if you'd want to be a part of the next week's Instagram suggestion story. I just asked y'all, what do you guys want me to make a story about? What do you guys want me to talk about in nursing news? Send me some ideas and I might pick one and just do one because I had no clue. And I got this question, and it's a simple one. It's an easy one. Thank you, Ashley. If you don't know who Ashley is, I'm going to have an Instagram thing right here, so you can click it somewhere here, somewhere on the screen. You'll see her Instagram username and handle, and in the description box below, you'll get a link. Please click it. Go follow her. Go check out her stuff. She's awesome. That's number one. Number two, she asked the simple question, what are the side effects of Kayexalate? I love this question because it's super simple. It's educational. It's what I do, and it's why I do what I do. So shout out to Ashley. Go follow her. She's awesome. And let's get to the goddamn question. So what are the side effects of Kayexalate? Before we jump to the end and say what the side effects are, let's go through the steps, the process, the steps that you need to get to before you even answer the question. So what in the world is Kayexalate? Kayexalate, and I'm going to say the other name. I'm sorry if I messed this up. I got all this information from the FDA, so it is approved. Okay, so the other name for Kayexalate is sodium polystyrene sulfonate. Sorry if I messed that pronunciation up. I apologize. And what is it used for? It is used to treat hyperkalemia. Hyperkalemia, meaning you have way too much potassium in your body. And how does it do that? The mechanism of action. I know there's a couple of steps you got to take before you get to the side effects, but it's important to know what it's used for and what it is before you talk about side effects. Because if I just tell you what the side effects for are, it just makes it easier. Just let me get through, and I promise it'll make sense. So, how does it do what it does, or in other words, what is its mechanism of action? So Kayexalate increases fecal potassium excretion through binding of potassium in the lumen of the gastrointestinal tract after administration by enema, or you can drink Kayexalate. It's given orally all the time. The sodium ions are partially released and are replaced by potassium ions. This action occurs primarily in the large intestine, which excretes potassium ions to a greater degree than does the small intestine. The efficiency of this process is limited and unpredictable. So right there, it sounds like a lot. It sounds confusing. Sounds super confusing. I know all these big words, but let me explain to you in the most simple way I know how. So in your gut, where your body holds a lot of its potassium, the Kayexalate goes down, especially in the large intestines, because that's where it happens more so than the small intestine. The Kayexalate switches the sodium for the potassium. It trades it. It says, you can take the sodium, I will hang on to the potassium. And when the Kayexalate takes the potassium and gives sodium instead, it goes through the intestines and you poop it out. You poop it out. You poop out a whole lot of potassium. That's as clear, as simple of an understanding as you need to understand the side effects for Kayexalate. So almost there, I promise. So what are the contraindications? In what kind of situation do you not want to give Kayexalate? Number one, and most common, right? So it's used for hyperkalemia, to get rid of the potassium. So you would never, ever, ever want to use Kayexalate when someone has a super low potassium, right? We all know that potassium affects the heart directly, so you always want to keep potassium in its normal range. So if you already have someone that has a low or has just lower of a potassium, try to stay away from the Kayexalate. And then because the way it gets rid of the Kayexalate is via bowel movements. If someone is not able to move their bowel or has a bowel obstruction, this is not the med to go to. So finally, the adverse reactions or the side effects of Kayexalate. So we already know that it gets rid of the potassium. So the number one and the most obvious one that you should know, and I love this because this is my normal thinking when it comes to 99.9% of medications, is if a medication is used to do something or cause something to happen, too much of that medication is going to be a side effect. So the number one side effect of Kayexalate is hypokalemia. And because Kayexalate gets rid of it via stool, it's hard to measure how much potassium is coming out of you, right? So that's why in the description of what the med does and how it does it, it says that the process is the amount that is excreted when given Kayexalate is hard to test. So you always want, after you know you have too much potassium, you get Kayexalate, you want to get your blood work done to see what the next potassium is before you give more, right? Another huge side effect is too much sodium in the body, or hypernatremia, and that is not obvious, but that is again why I started out by telling you the mechanism of action, because when Kayexalate is excreting all of the potassium in your large intestine, it is replacing it with sodium. So if you give too much Kayexalate, it is going to continue to replace, even if it is taking out the potassium because you need to get rid of it, it is going to continue to replace that potassium with sodium, and your sodium might go skyrocketing. Number three, hypovolemia. Everyone knows if you have diarrhea, hypovolemia is just not enough blood flow in your body. You're losing too much fluid in your body. That's another side effect. And then diarrhea. Obviously, it's causing you to move your bowels. Diarrhea is a huge side effect. And then, like every other med in the history of every med ever, nausea, vomiting, constipation. So those are the main side effects that you should be worried about, Ashley. Thank you for asking the question. Is number one, hypokalemia. Number two, too little potassium in the body because it's doing its job too well. Hypernatremia, too much sodium in the body because it's doing its job too well. And then number three, hypovolemia, not enough fluid in the body because you have diarrhea and you're pooping everything out, again, because it's doing its job too well. Those are the three major side effects you want to look for, and then obviously diarrhea, but we are expecting them to poop, but excessive diarrhea will cause all of those top three to be an issue. And then last but not least, the nausea, the vomiting, and the hypersensitivity to the drug, if that's a thing. And if someone has hypersensitivity to the drug, don't give it, find another way to get rid of the potassium. Ashley, I can't thank you enough for asking the question. And for those out there, for future reference, I do my nursing news every Friday. So I already put in my automatic reminders every Thursday post on Instagram story. What do you guys want me to cover in the nursing news moving forward? And I will continue to do that. And if you don't see the post on Thursday, or even if it's Friday and you're like, oh my God, nursing news is coming out and I want to know about X, Y, or Z, send me a DM, a message, whatever. Let me know. I would love to cover the stories that you guys are interested in, and I'm very thankful that Ashley actually asked us a question. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate this. If you guys were informed or educated in any way, shape, or form by these stories, please hit that like button. If you liked my presentation of the news, I really suggest you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know every time Q the Nurse drops some hot, fresh press news. Thank you. Catch you next week. Deuces.